if you're into games with blood and violence and sexual content and kids in sexual compromising positions and rape on the Nintendo, if that's what you want, then buy a Switch.
Mr. Toploaded Gaming, the fucking garden gnome who thinks he's intelligent.
Hey everyone, Trevor at Toploaded Gaming, and this is a response to an interview that Tommy Tallarico did on Review Tech USA's channel, and they were discussing the Intellivision Amico that is supposed to be coming out later this year in October. Now, I recommend watching the interview for full context, so I'll have a link in the description to the full interview. This was a near 4-hour interview, so it's a lot to unpack. I'll try my best not to take anything out of context, but full disclosure, I'm skeptical and I have what I think are valid questions and concerns of my own that I want to share. My intent with this video is not to just shit on Tommy or the company just because I fancy myself a roasting. I'm what you would call a longtime fan of Rich. As far as Tommy, the guy's got heart. I would even go as far as calling him the Rocky Balboa of the gaming industry.
We're like Rocky Balboa up in this bitch.
Now, all in all, I gotta respect the brass balls it takes to get in front of the world and take the chance of defending your baby, your creation. So while it may come off like I'm dumping on the product or being mean, my aim is to have transparency and end up helping someone make an informed decision on this product. That being said, let's get into it because, like I said, it's a lot.
You have to understand, gaming has a dark kind of cloud over it. When people who don't play video games think of consoles and that stuff, they think like, oh, it's violent. I don't want my kids to do that, blah, 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 blah. So people have to come to terms with that. Whether you believe it or not, it's the reality.
Now, the first point I'm going to discuss is that Tommy seems to be very anti-video game violence.
Play games online. Now I got to worry about little kids, on there and parents having to worry about, a toxic environment online. It's not what we're about. There's other systems. All the other systems do that. We don't want to do that. We want to create a safe environment for everyone.
Multiple times he said he had no issue with it, but the way he worded things, his mannerisms, it seems he's emotionally and irrationally against violence in video games. He says when you ask the masses, gaming has this dark cloud and that's just reality. And I don't disagree with him that gaming has a stigma around it. But the thing is, you would think that someone as experienced as Tommy would know or at least verbalize that these people are way off base.
I look at the video game industry that I've been in and I love. I've been in the video game industry for 30 years. I've loved it my whole life. And I see some of these games and it's gone too far.
I mean, gaming is no more violent than movies, music, books, TVs, comics, anime. At times, he sounds like Joe Lieberman in the 90s when he caused what led to the ESRB being founded.
I love the Switch. There's things I don't like about it. We talked about the eShop. They have a lot of violent content on there, more violent than the PlayStation and Xbox. I don't personally like that.
Or even better yet, that old lady that yells at you for listening to devil music. After all, he thinks one of the main selling points is the exclusion of violent video games.
The number one thing they love about our console is the simplicity of the games and the graphics. The number two thing is that it's safe, that they don't have to worry about that with their kids.
Is this guy trying to Me Too Nintendo?
There's a Wall Street Journal article that came out where, Nintendo...
I know it's on Steam, but I don't know about the Switch. I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. AO games are on the Nintendo Switch, and in different countries, they allow different things as well, too. So absolutely, Sony and Microsoft do not allow, as much the most violent and graphic games for home consoles is the Nintendo Switch. And I'm not trying to downplay them or call them out. But it's a fact.
Listen to how much emotion is behind his words. Does that sound like someone that just thinks this is a good business decision? Or is this someone that feels this way down to his bones?
The quartering is here.
Is
the
it really?
Quartering. Somebody just said, I sound like a social justice warrior. You couldn't be farther from the truth. And I'm probably one of the most politically incorrect people in the world. There's a Wall Street Journal article that came out.
So I'm watching all this live, and I decide to pose a question.
If you don't have freemium games or microtransactions, what incentive do companies have? They are greedy. Also, did Night Trap go too far? I have kids. Let the ESRB and parents do their job.
I wouldn't feel comfortable letting, a young kid play that, but are they allowed to do that? Should they have the ability to create that art? Absolutely. So when you say let the ESRB and the parents be in control, look, don't buy our machine.
Now, he seems to think Night Trap did go too far. So what is Tommy's line? What is going too far to Tommy?
So you wouldn't like violence on our machine because, it doesn't look as photorealistic. So that's a thing. Look, if you're into games with blood and violence and sexual content and kids in sexual compromising positions and rape on the Nintendo, if that's what you want, then buy a Switch. My favorite game of all time is Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. Also, I would put the first Red Dead Redemption very, very high on that list as well. Gosh, I was really looking forward to The Last of Us 2.
You mean to tell me Night Trap is too far, but Red Dead Redemption isn't? He's looking forward to The Last of Us 2, but in The Last of Us, Ellie is nearly raped in the game. Is that too far? Is it okay for Sony, but not okay for Nintendo?
I know you've done the focus groups. I'm not on board, guys. I'm not 100% sold on that. And if that's going to work, we'll see if it works. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Because I kind of agree with Toploaded Gaming is that there is parental controls. But maybe he'll find a market out there. They've done the focus groups. I'm not a focus group. I don't know. So I'm kind of, I understand what you're saying, Toploaded Gaming, and I agree with you. So, but we'll see. Maybe he'll prove us both wrong.
Let me ask you, Rich, you have a 3-year-old. Do you want him playing Fortnite next year?
This is ridiculous. Fortnite is cartoonish violence. GoldenEye was more violent, hexagonal as it was, but it was more violent.
The object of the game isn't to go around raping people. Hide your kids, hide your wife.
Yeah.
Raping everybody
Oh,
up.
God.
But it's part of the storytelling. So, that's fine. And again, this is a game that's not on PlayStation and Xbox, but is on the Switch. Nothing on our machine is going to be violent or have sexual content or rape or drugs or violence like all those other platforms have.
Google Fish asking a question for me. Speaking of Castlevania, can you maybe light a fire under Konami's rump and maybe have them make some good Contra games on your system?
Wait, wouldn't Contra be too violent?
Well, we're talking to him.
That would be badass if you brought it, and you could make that family. If you brought a Contra game over,
you think that's hyperbole?
Now that being said, look at our Night Stalker footage. Look at our, some games we have out there are actually pretty cool. Shooters or whatever. Not really shooters, but you're blowing up robots, not other humans.
So if we can manage to get Konami off of their pachinko playing asses, and they decide to make a new Contra exclusive to the Amico, we're going to have to deal with a censored game? Yeah, I can see it now. Teenage Mutant Hero Probotectors.
How about 4-player Contra? How about that?
Oh, that would be amazing.
A 4-player Contra? No offense, Tommy, and I'll forgive Rich because he's in the moment, and sometimes it's easy running a show to not think on your feet. But have you ever played Contra, Tommy? I mean, let's think it out. If you keep the scrolling system the same, 4-player would be a fucking mess. I mean, 2 players is a mess. If you play with someone that sucked, you would end up all the way to the right. Then they'd be all the way behind on the left, and it would get you killed. It kind of sucked. Now, obviously, the way to deal with that is to pan out similar to the way Nintendo did with the 4-player versions of the recent Wii and Wii U New Super Mario series, right? But that would probably bring problems of its own. Like, the bullets coming at you are shrunken and harder to see, resulting in frustration that isn't really your fault. Not really a sign of a good game. Now, that's just my thoughts, and I realize I could be wrong. Like Steve Jobs said, no one knows what they want until you give it to them. But Contra, that is a retro series, and that leads me to my next point, which is, who is this console for?
Sure. So it's simple, it's affordable, and it's all family oriented, right? So simple, affordable family entertainment. That spells out safe. So from a people perspective, mobile blows everything away. On a money perspective, they also blow them away 6 years in a row. Tommy, families aren't going to spend $249, or non-gamers, they're not going to spend $249 on a family gaming system. To that, I say, you're absolutely wrong. It's already been proven. It's called the Nintendo Wii.
So it's partially retro, partially hardcore, but mainly for kids to play with family and mobile gamers.
Do you know what the average person spends on mobile in the United States? It goes from $70 to $90 typically per year. It changes. Like, I think last year was $87 or something.
So this is what worries me with the Wii pitch that Tommy lays on real thick. Seems like he just saw the interviews on how Nintendo wanted to recapture some of that lightning in a bottle they got from the Kirby game. He decided to build his entire concept around that notion.
Microsoft, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and let's throw in PC and Mac. Hardcore PC and Mac players. That's 200 million people in the world. You know how many people play casual games every day? 3 billion. Our two biggest things are value and trust. That's the two most important things. It's not money and quarterly returns.
But he says it isn't all about money, yet it just so happens his business model is targeting the largest demographic of game sales there is. Which, if you were all about money, you're a businessman after all. I say own that shit. I just find it funny you make this argument directly after saying that console and PC gamers account for only 200 million people, while the mobile market accounts for 3 billion people. Seems your plan is pretty damn money-centric. All I'm saying.
Horseshoes and shuffleboard for grandpa and all that kind of stuff. So sports and recreation is one category. Another category is what we call retro reimagined. The third one is original IPs. Fourth category is edutainment and kids. And then the fifth category, Rich, is casual, meaning board games, card games, dice games.
Another worry with the Wii and mobile pitch is that the Wii had tons of shovelware, and so does mobile platforms. Also, the board game stuff, I always viewed that as shovelware. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I always looked at it that way. I mean, the one sealed Game Boy Advance game I've ever found in the wild, know what it is? A fucking board game 3-pack. Know why? Because nobody wants to play that fucking shit, let alone pay $250 for a device when they can get the board game for $20. I remember all the crappy plug-and-play games they had a while back. They had Yahtzee, Battleship, Texas Hold'em. I don't remember those doing too well. Now, Tommy seems to not know his audience either. At points, he seems to have disdain for hardcore gamers and retro gamers, but at times, he appeals to them too.
Look, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 5 or a Nintendo Switch or an Xbox One or an Xbox Series X. So don't even worry about it because it's none of that stuff. What we're talking about is bringing it back to what we grew up on, which is fun games, and it didn't matter the graphics.
Even Rich says at some point that he thinks he underestimates just how many serious retro gamers are here and interested. Now, since Tommy is so focused on mobile, naturally the question is asked, are you going to have microtransactions? And he says no to all of it. No in-app purchases, no ads, no loot boxes, etc. But what's confusing to me is that he mentions Candy Crush. Doesn't Candy Crush have in-app purchases?
Konami's doing absolutely nothing with their IPs.
Yep,
It's family enough. It could be like PG.
Tommy, are you having microtransactions? Nope.
You expect Konami to make Castlevania or Contra games, forgetting the fact that Contra is a competitive, serious retro game. The last Contra game that I saw come out was for iOS, and they gutted it. They made it a freemium game. They charged money for a taste of the weapon upgrades, meaning even though you spent money for the weapons, like the spread shot, the time eventually ran out and you had to rent them again. So forget Konami. In general, if you expect to break into the mobile market, yet you aren't allowing the key things that make them money, what incentive do these devs have to make games on your console? I mean, let's take Skyforce, for example. It's another freemium game on iOS. You could potentially spend thousands on there leveling up your ship. Do they have an incentive to port their game to your system when you are in their same market? I mean, they released this game for consoles minus all the freemium shit. But console people aren't going to pay to play their iOS version anyways, so the devs get that. But you're trying to get those same people to buy your system, so I really don't get it.
And your son will have a controller, and your wife can have a controller, and you'll be able to play educational games with them. This is pretty damn cool, and nobody's doing it, you know? But people want to tear us down? Go ahead.
Also, you say no one is doing the edutainment thing, but did Leapfrog go out of business and I just missed that? Oh, yeah, of course, they're still there. Again, I'll forgive Rich for not thinking about this because I realize it's super easy for me to nitpick this whole thing. But what about twin-stick shooters like Smash TV? Certainly this genre could have existed in your 20% of retro games, but you had to squeeze more nostalgia into the controller. And you know, man, I'm sorry, again, this isn't personal, but if Nintendo was trying to shove a bunch of gimmicky crap down my throat, I would be acting the same way, and so would Rich. Just look at how critical he was on the Wii U and the Switch before the commercials.
You want to tear us down and say all these awful things? You know what? We're employing literally thousands of people, and we're lifting up the indie developers as well. So when you crap on us and you want to destroy us, you're taking, you're taking indie developers and the food off their table as well.
Now at this point, seeing how defensive Tommy was getting, I left another comment.
So Toploaded Gaming, to be clear, I respect Tommy for doing these interviews. It may change the landscape of launches, or it may serve an example of why they don't. Good luck. So I give him respect where respect's due. He's being respectfully critical, and you can't knock that.
No, that's great. No, I appreciate it, and thanks for keeping an open mind. And
Pat and Ian could still despise the console. They could try it and be like, "Hey, we tried it. We still think it's
like
terrible
it for this reason.
We still think it sucks because of this." That's fine. Think it sucks, but I've driven further. I've driven further to go to the fucking mall, and you won't try it. I thought he was like, okay, they're in the same state. Still, be like, still not excusable.
Half hour. He's a half hour away.
Now, with Pat living so close, I get why he said this, and I think it's a fair point to make against Pat. But in general, as a rule, that doesn't fly. The same type of people say you can't judge a movie by its trailer. And to that, I call bullshit. The trailer's job, your ads should be what sells me on it. That's its purpose. So to act like all criticism is somehow invalid is just an irrational emotional appeal. Furthermore, to act like we are some evil guys taking bread away from devs is just fucking laughable. Which leads me to all Tommy's emotional defensive rants.
Not hardcore gamers like our system too, but these elitists, they're racists. They're literally gaming racists, meaning whatever I believe and whatever I think, that's what's going to happen. No one's going to buy your stupid machine because I don't like those kind of games. So that means the rest of the world's not going to like them either.
He calls the hardcore gamers elitists, then racist, then gamer racist. Now later he tried to play it off as a joke, but it didn't sound like a joke to me.
Saint Walker X00. Did this guy just call people criticizing his overpriced, underpowered console the equivalent of racist? I've got no hatred for the console, but it seems like he's overindulged on his own Kool-Aid.
Oh, please. I mean, take a freaking joke, people. Like, seriously. Take a joke. God.
Just like his Me Too movement earlier against Nintendo, look how emotional he got. If I'm a betting man, I'd say he meant that shit. I think Tommy really doesn't understand how much he is appealing to retro gamers and how a lot of retro gamers are hardcore into games.
All you folks can say, it's too expensive. Great, then don't get one now. Okay? Don't get one. Because our market research, again, I just told you, you folks who are against me right now, you're not listening. Right? You're being a little stubborn. The reality is the focus groups say simplicity number one, And again, we say, well, what focus groups? Families, the people who we are attracting. We're not trying to sell it to you.
I just want to point out, since you seem to be knocking a decent amount of your audience, as far as I can tell, Intellivision is not a household name. I mean, Atari is better known than Intellivision. I asked my wife if she ever heard of them. Nope, but she's heard of Atari. I get that it's just one example and it's anecdotal. But I feel pretty safe in assuming that Intellivision is nowhere near as recognized as Atari.
It's digital and physical.
Where the hell are the games going to go?
Oh, again, you think people invest in us because we're making up stuff in Photoshop? No, we have this on video. We have reports, and these are all third-party reports. They're not from us. You pay people to get true information, right? So we know.
Now, Nintendo, that's a household name. And that definitely helped them to sell the Wii as well as it did. For fuck's sake, Mario is known to kids more than Mickey fucking Mouse. So the people that remember Intellivision are people that had it growing up and retro gamers.
If you don't have Wi-Fi at home, it's probably not for you. Or you could tether it on your phone, right? I mean, you could, if you have a mobile device and you don't have Wi-Fi, you could tether it to your phone.
I would say that Google had a fair amount of data to suggest that the Stadia would succeed. I'd also say that Microsoft had a fair amount of data to suggest it was a good idea to try and make the Xbox One an always online console. Sometimes data isn't enough.
Are you going to have freemium games? No, right? You're not going to have any freemium. No.
Well, I mean, the system comes with 6 games, so you can say that it comes with 6 free ones.
But Tommy, again, I respect you for having the balls to do this. Ultimately, I'm skeptical, and it's really hard for me to look past the abysmal controller. I'm sorry. But it's not like I want you to fail. Again, I wish you luck. Hopefully, after this video, people are asking healthy questions about the Intellivision Amico, and it leads people to make more informed purchases, which was ultimately my goal with this video. Now, I extended an invitation to Tommy to come on my show, Over the Top Podcast, link in the description.
I'm going over the top.
And he responded, we're trying to, get a schedule down, get a date put down. So if we're able to, I'll let everybody know. But that's going to do it for me. This is Trevor at Toploaded Gaming. And see you next time.
If we had the opportunity to get a lap dance from The Little Mermaid, we'd be all over it.
Mr. Toploaded Gaming, the fucking garden gnome who thinks he's intelligent.